I did not intend to do this topic, this show, whatever you want to say, but this is like the number one most upvoted, requested, please do a show on this topic. So here we go. The 2022 CrossFit Games Open has come to a close, and as always, there's a lot of chatter about the workouts. Were they good? Were they bad? Were they whatever it happens to be? Please analyze them, check them out, blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of the topic of this show. Looking back over the 3 weeks of the Open and looking at the workouts a bit. And I will say this is looking at the workouts not casually, but not with like a full-blown autopsy. If I wanted to block off 3 hours of my day to just dissect the workouts, which I'll be honest with you, I don't want to block off 3 hours of my day to look over the CrossFit Open workouts. But I'm quite familiar with them, sketched down some notes, got some random thoughts, and so if people want to hear them, I'm more than happy to throw them out there. Okay, here we go. First of all, the CrossFit Open. Before you can look at the workouts and either give them a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a middle of the road score, you have to have some sort of metric as to what you're judging them by, right? Like, it doesn't matter if anybody personally liked them or didn't like them. Maybe you have a favorite movement, you're upset that movement didn't come up, and now you don't like the workouts. You're welcome to have your opinion, but that opinion is relatively meaningless in the grand scheme of an actual, honest, unbiased assessment of whether or not the workouts accomplish their aims, right? So, first thing we have to ask ourselves with the CrossFit Open or the Open workouts is, what's the point? Really, because we don't know what the point of them is, how can we say whether or not they achieved their goal? The Open is supposed to be a community event, and because of that, it's ideally supposed to be highly participatory. So as many people, hopefully from as many different skill levels, can throw their hat in the ring and participate. So that's one of the primary things right there. So we have to see whether or not it accomplished that. And then, on top of that, while being highly participatory and welcoming and not terrifying to most CrossFitters, whatever workouts come out have to screen appropriately. By the time that the workout or the Open is over, the right people have advanced to the next stage of competition, which this year would be the quarterfinals. And so that would be the other thing we have to assess whether or not it accomplished that. So you could make some cases for some other things, but I think that's a very fair assessment. Number one, a community highly participatory event, and number two, getting the right people to the next stage of competition. So with that lens, we can check them out. And it's difficult to do, by the way, to create workouts that are at the same time welcoming to a large range of athletic ability, yet will give the best the opportunity to separate themselves. It's potentially not as easy as some people might think that it is. Certainly can be done. So we've got 22.1, right? Just to refresh everyone's memory. It was a 15-minute AMRAP. You had 3 wall walks, 12 dumbbell snatches, and 15 box jump overs. 50-pound dumbbell for men, 35 for women, 24-inch box for men, 20 for women. Nice workout. It's a nice standalone workout. Then you have to ask yourself, how did it play in with everything else that was programmed? To refresh your memory on 22.2, 1 up to 10, back down to 1, if you could make it, of deadlifts at 225 pounds or 155, and then bar-facing burpees. So that comes out to 100 repetitions of each. Yikes. That had a 10-minute time cap. So 15 minutes on 22.1, 10-minute time cap on 22.2. And the final workout, 22.3, that just came out last week, had pull-ups, double unders, and thrusters. And what you did in the pull-up bar increased in complexity as the workout progressed, and the loading of the thruster increased as the workout progressed. So it was for time. It also had a 12-minute cap, so a time cap right between the other two workouts. 21 pull-ups, just kipping chin over bar pull-ups, that's what it started with. 42 double unders, then you do 21 thrusters at 95 or 65. Now everything gets a little more complicated. 18 chest to bar instead of chin over bar. 36 double unders, 18 thrusters, but the weight has increased to 115 or 75. And then finally, 15 bar muscle ups, 30 double unders, and finally 15 thrusters at 135 pounds for men and 85 pounds for women. So those were the three workouts from the Open this year that had to be both highly participatory and pre-screened for the best people. All right, so let's take a little dive, right? Let's take a look. From the participation aspect, there are several things that come into play as to whether or not it hit the mark on that. Loading, complexity of movement, gear. You can have a lot of technical stuff or a lot of very niche kind of equipment, or you're going to exclude people. Workout number 1, what did you need? You needed a wall. Most people have that. You needed something to jump on. Most people could find that. And you needed only one dumbbell. So as far as gear goes, for 22.1, from being participatory, I think very well done on that. Number 2, 22.2. All you need is a barbell, which a lot of people have, and not a huge amount of bumper plates, right? Just enough to either load 225 or 155, or less than that if you're doing some sort of scale deal. And then you're just jumping over the bar. So a very small level of gear on that as well. So 2 out of the 3 weeks, I'm saying, as far as people being able to play if they wanted to from a gear perspective, solid. 22.3, you need a pull-up bar, which I think it's safe to say a lot of people have by this point in time, or they have access to. You need a jump rope, which I think is very realistic to ask as well. And then you need that same barbell that you used the week before, and you need even less loading. So, from the gear perspective, I'm going to say, nicely done. Now let's think about the movements themselves, how they do from a participatory standpoint. The wall walks, that is what started off 22.1. And it just kind of depends upon whether or not you had those or not, right? I mean, that was, not everybody has them, and so that could be an argument or something that people chatted about on social media of, why did you put that first? Took me right out of the competition. Why couldn't it have started with either a box jump over or the dumbbell snatch and had the wall walks last? Because you could argue that was the most technical and complicated of those 3 movements, and it's the one that led off. So if you didn't have at least one of those, you were going to be out before the workout even started. So it probably depends upon where you fall into that camp. The wall walk, not to go down a rabbit hole on that, the wall walk's a fine movement, right? And if it wasn't the wall walk, maybe it would have been a handstand push-up or something like that. Between those 2 movements, I'm going to say that the wall walk is probably a bit more friendly to a larger group of people than a handstand push-up. So, there could be an argument there as well, but that's what I could see somebody having for 22.1. Second workout, deadlifts and burpees. I mean, that's about as user-friendly to anybody in the world as you could possibly get. Most people can pick something up off the ground. Most people can get themselves onto the ground and jump back up. So that, I think, was, good to go. Now, a different conversation would have been, I heard some people say, let me see if I'm getting to this later or not. I heard some people say with 22.2, well, it's 100 reps of each movement. That's way too many. That's negligent. Under that level of fatigue and stress with so many burpees and so many deadlifts that, your form's going to be compromised, and that was a bad decision. And all of hey, again, welcome to your critiques, right? All of that is fair. And I personally, as everyone else is entitled to their personal opinion, right? My personal opinion is I'm not in that camp. Now, I'm not in that camp currently as I tell you this story over this video, but I've been doing CrossFit now a little over 16 years. In my earlier days in CrossFit, when I was far more of a knucklehead and all I cared about was the score, and all I cared about was doing whatever was needed to try to get a little higher on the leaderboard and sacrificing the body if needed, which, by the way, was stupid, I probably would have been one of those people that overdid it, quite frankly. And here's the interesting thing. I like to think as the years go by, I remove more and more of my head from my anus and make better and better decisions. Whether I was the younger version of myself, making poor decisions in that workout and grabbing the barbell before I was ready and, I don't know, having my back compromised, or what I like to think is a more intelligent version of myself now, which is if I feel like I'm not ready to pull the next rep, here's an amazing thing. I just won't pull the next rep. I just won't. I'll just continue resting until I feel ready to pull the next rep and safe to pull the next rep, and then I'll pull the next rep. And doing that might cost my precious place on the leaderboard to plummet. Who cares? It doesn't mean anything anyway. And then the next day, I feel good, my back feels fine, and I continue training and life's wonderful. So I'm a fan of what's not overly popular in 2022, which is personal responsibility. And so if you pushed yourself too far in the workout, it wasn't 22.2's fault. They didn't force you to grab the barbell again. They didn't force you not to scale. They didn't force you to overdo it. You did. You made that decision. You made a bad decision. Sorry, it's your fault. You should have made a better decision. Now, of course, someone's going to say, but it's the open, and they know people are going to go hard, and they shouldn't even do it. They shouldn't even open Pandora's box like that, and somebody might do the workout that doesn't know, and you're sure, correct. If out of the billions of people in the world, you would like to highlight some examples that fall under the category to support that argument, you'll find those people. Correct. But there's a lot of things in this world that you can make bad decisions with, and they don't come with a rule book as to how to use them properly, and people do them every time. If you want, you can go down to your local Department of Motor Vehicles, take the motorcycle test, pass that thing, and with no real experience whatsoever, go down to your local Suzuki dealership and buy a Gixxer 1000 and just take it off the lot. See how that works out for you. Probably won't work out too well. Is that the Suzuki Corporation's fault? No. You should have made some better decisions. And I'm saying that as somebody who has wrecked many motorcycles, and it was never the motorcycle's fault. It was my fault. You can go down to your local grocery store right now if you want to buy 30 beers. Just go for it. And you're not going to get a little pamphlet with those 30 beers as to how to use them appropriately. Should you space them out, or should you whack them all back by lunchtime? That's your call. You're going to have a wildly different experience based upon what you choose to do with it. The world is full of these things. Make good decisions. Make good decisions. It's just a silly little leaderboard. That's it. So don't worry about where you fall in it. Make the best decisions for yourself. That was a bit of a rabbit hole. 22.3. Where was we? For gear, you need a pull-up bar, double under, jump rope, and barbell, less weight. So good to go on that. And it started with chin over bar pull-ups, which for the final workout of the open, I think that's very realistic, a very nice move to start with, right? I think this is the opposite critique of 22.1, where you're like, did you have to start with the wall walks? Well, in 22.3, you could say, and I know it gets really tricky, right? Because you're going to do bar muscle-ups at the end, but those at the end. Every single segment along the way, you're going to do double unders, which is a movement that causes plenty of people trouble and takes them out of the game, so to speak, if they're not quite there yet. Well, they could have started with the double under, and that would have been frustrating for a lot of people. So the fact that they didn't, and they started movement number 1 with a chin over bar pull-up, even if you struggle with double unders, you've got 12 minutes to, get your 21 chin over bar pull-ups, try to get through those 42 double unders, get yourself to the thruster bar, and kind of keep going. And then you're chipping away at it and chipping away at it. And, one of my critiques of the final workout could also be, because there's two sides to every coin, right? One of my critiques you could also say why it was a good thing. So a possible critique would be, well, the double unders, 42, 36, and 30, those are the sets of double unders. If you have double unders, even if you're tired, those are laughably small, insignificant, complete non-issues. If you have double unders, even if you trip a bunch, you're going to get to 42 double unders in less than a minute, even if you trip a bunch, if you have double unders. Now, if somebody watching this does not have double unders, 42 seems like Mount Everest, right? So you could say, well, for the advanced athlete, it's not enough. True, but for the if you actually mean like an advanced athlete that's going to go on to quarterfinals or something else, it wouldn't matter if they were sets of 100. They're just going to blow through them. So whoop-de-doo either way. So if it's kind of a non-factor, a double under is for the elites, so let's not worry about them. Now we're trying to cater to most other people. Well, 42, 36, and 30, while challenging, is probably not a bad thing, and a reasonable request for a lot of people. So that, you could have both sides on that one. Time domains. Roughly, you get a 10-minute cap, a 12-minute cap, and then a 15-minute AMRAP. So 10, 12, and 15, let's call it. That's a nice spread of time domains. I understand. It'd be nice to go like a short, sharp one, like really punchy. Get that. 20 minutes is always nice as well, but a 10, 12, and 15, you can get a lot of good stuff done in 10, 12, and 15. If you're just looking at just the modalities involved, 22.1, you had gymnastics, weightlifting and gymnastics, moderate load on the dumbbell. 22.2, weightlifting and gymnastics, moderate load on the barbell. 22.3, gymnastics, monostructural, and weightlifting. And what's interesting about 22.3 is each one, other than the monostructural element, which is the double under, increased in difficulty. So you had the gymnastics movement increased in difficulty as 22.3 went on, and the weightlifting movement of the thruster increased in loading as 22.3 went on. So that in and of itself is a unique and effective test to let a lot of people play initially, and then you're screening, weeding some people out, weeding some people out, weeding some people out. Let's get into the fun part, right? Possible critiques. So possible critiques would be, and I'm just guessing about this, because believe it or not, reading, I assume there's like probably Reddit threads and everything with people complaining about the Open. I would find that a very poor use of my precious time on planet Earth to spend time in those threads and comments. So I bet I can guess after 16 plus years of CrossFit what people are probably saying. Number one, I bet, is a huge banner being waved. There was no heavy lift. No lifting complex. No 22.3A or etc. Something like that. And another possible one that I could see being shouted was no real, monostructural component like a rower. We're probably not going to run in the Open. I don't know if air bikes are ubiquitous enough yet to assume that everybody would have access to one, but the rowers made an appearance before in the Open regularly, and that's a great piece of conditioning gear, and it didn't come up. So that could be another critique as well, right? And I'm sure there are countless others, but I would think those are two pretty decent ones. So let's talk about the no heavy lift one. Again, getting back to what is the point of the Open, right? Highly participatory, and make sure the right people advance to the next level of competition, which would be the quarterfinals. So, what would a heavy lift do? Heavy lift would showcase and test top-end strength. No doubt about it. That's exactly what it does. And that's cool to see. People love it, and it's absolutely important, and it absolutely has value. And you could make the strongest case in the world, no pun intended, that it should have been there, deserved to have been there, would have been a better test with it. It's, whatever you want to do. You could make a pretty darn bomb-proof case for that. As everything is, let's go with the counterpoint. Heavy lift is testing strength, right? Period, end of story. And depending upon the complexity of the lift, the neurological components of coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance, right? So, counterpoint would be, okay, well, there was no heavy lift, so you didn't get to showcase strength, so you didn't really test strength. Therefore, the open is, it didn't do its job, or something like that, or didn't do its job as well as it could have. So the counterpoint would be, was somebody going to complete 22.2, which to refresh your memory, if you completed it in 10 minutes time, was 100 bar-facing burpees and 100 deadlifts at 225 and 155. Was somebody going to complete 22.2 in 10 minutes or less, being very well conditioned, but weak? Absolutely, unequivocally not. And plenty of people who are quote-unquote strong and usually don't have an issue with a 225 or 155 barbell remarked over and over again how that loading never felt so darn heavy, because you had to go up this pyramid to 10, then back down to 1, paired with the burpee. You were just out of breath, then you're right back on the barbell, and all of a sudden when you're so darn tired, that precious top-end strength just poof goes away, and that real wonderful usable strength that's there under fatigue and under duress, that kind of saved the day. So, but there's absolutely no way somebody was going to do well on 22.2 if they were not strong. But they couldn't just be strong. They had to have tremendous conditioning and stamina as well. So, again, there's a counterpoint to that. 22.3, if you were capable enough and fit enough to get through all the work required to make it to the end, you did 21 chin over bar pull-ups, you did 18 chest to bar pull-ups, you did 15 bar muscle-ups after all of that other pulling, you'd done a set of 21 thrusters at a moderate weight, a set of 18 at a miserable 115 or 75. You did some double unders in there. You were somehow able to knock all of that out within a 12-minute time cap and still have enough time left on the clock to get 135 or 95 on the bar and have to do 15 god-awful thrusters in that profoundly high-level state of fatigue and duress. And if you accomplished doing that, I don't think that you're weak. I actually think you're really strong, quite frankly, but not just strong, because your conditioning had to be through the roof to get to that barbell, and vice versa. If you were just conditioned, but you were weak, you weren't going to get to that final barbell anyway. And if you did get to that barbell, you were just going to stare at it. So there's points and counterpoints to that as well. At the end of 22.3, could there have been a however many minute reset, then a 22.3a, heavy lift of fill in the blank? Sure. Absolutely could have been. Would have been nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, potentially would have been even better, right? Because the more tests, the more data points, the better the process is going to be to get the right people forward. So you could make a really, really strong case that would have been, the deal as well. Other possible critique, I said there was no rower, right? Which rower generally, it's your metabolic part right there. It tests conditioning and engine, so to speak. And so, hey, there was no rower. And the rower is a singular element to test conditioning, within no question. So there wasn't a rower. We can't run or anything else, so we must not have tested conditioning. That is just as incorrect as the only way to test strength is through a heavy lift. Anyone who did 22.1, actually any of the workouts really, if you crushed 22.1 or you crushed 22.2 and finished within that 10-minute time cap, or you did 22.3 and you finished within the time, even if you didn't finish, if you just did the thing and you tried really hard, did you notice an increased breathing rate during that experience? Yeah, you did. You probably felt like you were doing wind sprints at the track because those workouts, those elements, those movements together absolutely tested conditioning. You were not going to be conditioned and you were not going to be deconditioned and excel. And so, kind of getting back to what I said a second ago, there's a whole lot of different ways to get to the end state that you want to. And different programmers might have gotten there in a different way. And that's okay, because there's not just, if you're trying to get to a certain destination, which is we're going to do 3 workouts, we want to make them highly participatory, yet we want to pre-screen to make sure the right people get to quarterfinals. And if you gave them to 5 different highly capable, competent, trusted, professional programmers, you would get 3 different workouts or 3 different paths to get to that end state. And each of those 5 paths might actually get you there, but they would just be stylistically different. They could still be effective and be stylistically different. So, could we have got there in a different manner? Sure, absolutely. And anyone who tells you that the answer is no is probably selling you something. So, let's see. Would I have done things differently? Probably, because I've got my own style as well. But that's a separate question or a separate point compared to, did these work? Did they accomplish their aims? Were they highly participatory? Based upon the things that we've led up to, I would say overwhelmingly so, regarding the gear that you did or didn't need and the movements that you needed to have or didn't need to have, and the complex stuff was kind of near the end in 22.3. Again, maybe the only big real argument there is starting with the wall walks in 22.1, but I would say largely, yeah, they largely did a pretty good job for being highly participatory for loadings, movements, and gear needed for most people under most circumstances most of the time. And then the other part of why, what is the Open, to pre-screen for the right people advancing to quarterfinals, well, maybe that's a bit, maybe subjective if you've got your favorite athlete that for some reason doesn't make it, potentially. But I think if you went on to the leaderboard right now and scrolled through the first couple of pages for the men and the first couple of pages for the women, I think most of the names that you would think should be there and advance to quarterfinals will be advancing to quarterfinals. That's what it looks like to me anyway. Now, here's what doesn't matter at this point. What matters at this point is, if you're interested in the season and the right people advancing, is just that. Did the right people advance? What matters a little bit less is, well, hey, if there had been 22.3A and it was a heavy 1-rep clean and jerk or a 1-rep snatch, well then, so-and-so who's in, I'm just pulling this out of the air, so-and-so who's in 8th place, they're way stronger than the 7 athletes on the leaderboard ahead of them. That would have bumped them up the leaderboard, and now they'd be in like 4th. That's fair, especially if you're a fan of that athlete. You would prefer to see them in 4th and 8th. I get that. But that actually doesn't matter right now, as long as the right people got to quarterfinals. Is there this, so-and-so would have shifted 1 or 2 spots? Great. But what wouldn't have happened is, so-and-so's in 10,000th place right now, and had there been a 22.3A, they'd be 9th in the world. No, they wouldn't. So that's largely irrelevant. The right people getting to the quarterfinals, again, looking at the men's and women's leaderboard right now, overwhelmingly, I'd say we're going to see the athletes compete that we should. And then I'm sure that you will see at quarterfinals increased complexity of movements, a wide variety of time domains, modalities, loadings, the whole 9 yards, and it won't be highly participatory because they're going to be able to ratchet all of that stuff up to cater to these athletes that are pre-screened to kind of go for that. So, yeah, I think hopefully that help some people. I think that's just kind of my unbiased take on the 2022 Open thus far. Quarterfinals, I couldn't even tell you when those are. They're sometime in the future. And some people will be competing. And that'll be that. It'll be fun to watch. So that's it. Hope whether you did or didn't do it, that you had a blast or enjoyed yourself or whatever it was. And yeah, have a great day. And we will talk later.